Hello everybody! I'm about to share the answer key for week 2. So that was the assignment where you needed to watch a video and then answer some questions about safety, professional boundaries, responsibility, the components of an effective class. So if you haven't done your week 2 homework, please stop watching. Give it a try on your own first. If you're really struggling and you want to take a peek at this, okay. But I would really encourage you to try it all on your own before you watch this. And I will give everybody feedback as homework continues to come in. So if you're looking for anything really specific, then I'll provide that to you. So I'm going to go over some of the answers to these questions, and I pulled out what I thought were some great responses from those of you that have finished it so far. So the first question was, in your own words, describe what it means to have professional boundaries. Now, Carrie came up with a really concise one. Don't teach what you don't know. That's a great way of looking at it. Daniela said, I need to be aware of the training I received. If it's not adequate, then I have to stick to the Hoop Play guidebook 100%. Absolutely true. Victoria talked about setting appropriate expectations. So my expectations of myself and the expectations that I have of my students, and they'll feel that too. So what I expect from them, they'll probably start adjusting their own expectations to the class too. So that's an important thing to think of. And then Jenny said, having enough understanding of yourself to know what you are and are not capable of teaching. A really nice way of putting it again. So when we're doing this at instructor training, the really key thing to hammer home, this might sound like a little bit harsh depending on who your audience is, but it's that when you've done Hoop Play instructor training, that does not mean that you're a fitness instructor, right? It doesn't mean you're a group fitness leader. It doesn't mean you're a personal trainer. It doesn't mean that you're an expert on weight loss and nutrition. And that's really the bottom line. That's kind of the biggest risk that can come out of certifying new trainers, that they'll go away with confidence that isn't in line with their actual qualifications and skills, and that can lead to dangerous situations, right? If we have people that are stepping outside of their professional boundaries and teaching things that they really don't have the training to teach, then people can get hurt. So that's the bottom line, and if we can say it in much nicer ways, like all of you have, then that comes across really well to our students. I also wanted to say, Michelle added in that you have to know what the guidelines of the registering body and the profession say in order to practice ethically. And yeah, what a great thing to consider. What are your ethics? What does your registering body say about it? So as a fitness instructor, that would be making sure that we're not teaching people that aren't like medically at a good place to start taking your classes, right? As like a social worker, we have a lot more ethics that come along with all of that. But yeah, it's a really good thing to think about. How are we going to teach ethically if we're involved in any sort of other professional body? And then Laura also shared that we need to share the scope of our knowledge in order to teach, in order to best teach our students. And I thought that was like a really insightful and different way of looking at it. I actually like drew a little hula hoop, a person inside a hula hoop, because I think typically of boundaries as your professional boundaries are limits, right? So if I'm inside my professional boundaries here, but my boundaries are actually way out there, then I can be like super safe and just stay within my boundaries and know that like never step outside of the Hoop Play program whatsoever, be really strict and on the ball and don't go outside of that. Or I can see, okay, my boundaries actually extend like a little bit higher up, so maybe I can push it a bit more and actually teach within that whole scope. So yeah, I thought that was a really good way of thinking about things, because we don't have to play it safe and stay really far back from the edges of our boundaries. We could push it and really share the full scope of what we know. So yeah, great responses there. And then again, this bottom line is making sure that our brand new instructors understand that they're not fitness instructors, they're not personal trainers, and they're not nutritionists. And there's a lot of other roles that could come into play there, but those are really the 3 most common. So then when we go into the question number 2, talking more specifically, a group fitness instructor, the main difference is here would be that a group fitness instructor could incorporate other fitness drills. They could mix up the structure. So if any of you that have done group fitness training, you'll know that Hoop Play is just one specific structure. It's just one application. There's lots of other things that we could do, lots of other formats that exist. So if you have that knowledge and experience and certification, then you can play around with it a lot more. A personal trainer would be able to provide really specific recommendations on an individual level. So a group fitness instructor, guidelines for everybody, for everyone in the whole group. A personal trainer could go up to one person in particular and say, let me adjust this movement so that you can get better muscle conditioning or injury prevention or weight loss. So really adapting the program on a very individual level and probably for a really specific fitness goal. And then a nutritionist, the reason we bring that up is because of weight loss, food, recommending, telling people what to eat. There's so many different ways of eating and so many different supplements and approaches and diets out there. And, you know, if you want to share that with your students as an anecdotal thing, as like a personal story, or this has worked for me, then that's one thing. That's great, really. It's a good way to connect with your students. But we have to be really careful that we're not providing them any sort of advice, and we're not giving our students the impression that we are nutritionists, because that gets very complicated too, right? We don't know what's happening inside people's bodies and don't understand all of the differences and complexities of food and nutrition. So we have to be really, really careful when we're sharing that knowledge with students. So yeah, great job on all of those. Then when we talk about our own boundaries, again, some really good examples. So like Jenny said, since she's a children's librarian, she could throw in literacy tips as she's teaching to adults, to kids. Michelle did training in Rainbow Kids Yoga, so she's able to incorporate into her hoop play classes a little bit of the yoga training at the beginning or the end or in between as she sees it fit. Carrie talked about how she likes to make her students feel elevated emotionally and physically and work on self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is this like ability to achieve things. So in a hoop play class or in a hoop class, it would be your students going away with a new skill that they can do. And I thought that was a really cool application too, because Carrie's pulling that out of her own experience and her own approach to teaching, and it's not creating any sort of danger or risk, right? She's just saying that this is the goal of my classes, and I've set out this like mission statement as an instructor, as a business owner, as an independent business owner, and so that's what she incorporates into her classes, and that becomes part of her own boundaries. And then I thought that I would share, I was trying to think of an example from my own life of my own boundaries, and I thought of like performance hooping. I have done so very little performing. I really shy away from it. Most of you guys probably know that already. So if a student came up to me and was like, yeah, I think I want to do a performance and I need some help designing choreography and picking out music, it would be really inappropriate for me to be like, oh yeah, totally, I can help with that. I know all about that because I'm a hula hooper. I've been doing this for years. Well, no, I haven't. I really don't have any training or experience or knowledge that I can share, except for what I've seen from all of you guys out there that are doing it. So that would be an example of where I'd have to step back and say, no, that's outside of my professional boundaries, and in order to keep my students safe and happy and successful, I'm not gonna step outside here. Oh.